incredibly excited for today's conversation. We are talking about creating the life that you love. So many of us live chained to our desks, chained to the autopilot default approach to life, which is people tell me how to live and I live accordingly. And I can't think of anyone better to be here with us today to talk about how to live in control in the driver's seat of our life than Atiba de Souza. He is actually making some really incredible moves in his life. And Atiba, I'm so excited to have you. You're an author, you have a very successful agency, and you are making some moves, literally, that most people are terrified to make. But it's
Yeah.
all predicated in who you are and what you've done to design this life of yours. So thank you for joining me, my friend.
Christine, thank you for having me. And well, one, we know we love hanging out. And so we're gonna love hanging out with all of you as well who are watching, because that's my friend right there.
And that's my friend right there. Atiba, we are talking about creating a life that you love. And I'd love to hear your honestly your process of moving from a
Yeah.
life that you have not loved, because I know that we all make that transition at some point from effectively moving out of the rat race, and not even just the rat race, but moving out of this place of kind of being informed by everyone and everything around us, and moving into the driver's seat. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. Well, one, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's easy. Okay. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this and make this sound like, oh my gosh, it's so rosy and you can just do it tomorrow and oh, it's going to be peaches. It's not. It takes work, because it took a lot to get to where you are right now, and in the mess that you're in. And it's going to take a lot to get out. And that was our story. Okay. And that was a lot of what I had to go through. So let's go back about 7 years or so, right? 7, 8, 9 years even or so. What life looked like was I was running an agency. That was okay. We were making money. It was good. And we were running brick and mortar stores. Okay. At the time, we owned, which was the largest gift delivery service in the Washington, D.C. area. But what did that look like? It looked like every single day, while taking kids to school, stopping at the restaurant grocery store and buying produce and buying stuff, dropping kids to school, then going to a kitchen, then having people produce, then managing the, and that was every day. And so the day started at like 5 a.m. and ended around 9 p.m. every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Oh, and we had family. Oh, and I was still running an agency too, right? And
Right,
all of
right.
this stuff, and it was just absolutely hell. Eating poorly, health was failing, relationships were failing, and just sitting around wondering, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And as entrepreneurs, we also know things don't always go well in business. And so, especially in those years when things weren't going well, it was really just a, what the hell is going on? And is this what life was meant to be? And it wasn't what we wanted. And so it started, Christine, honestly, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, we said October 2025, we are moving out of the country. October 2025.
Wow.
And we are moving out of the country on the 27th of October 2025. But we
This was
said that
two
seven
years
years,
ago. You're like effectively
no,
7 years ago.
seven. This
Wow.
is why
Why
I'm
that
telling you, I'm
date?
not going to sugar. So for us, it was a milestone date because our youngest was going to graduate high school and go to college. Right now, I wanted June when she graduated. The wife said, "No, we got to stay through the summer. We got to get her in school, and I want to make sure she's okay in school." And so we compromised on October. Okay, but we set that date. And one of the things that my wife told me last week, now that we've are in that process and we sold everything and we've moved across country and we're about to move out of the country, is in the last 7 years, I've really appreciated that everything you've done, and you stayed focused on October 2025, and you never let us lose sight. And that's the thing. If you're going to create the life that you love, one, you need that vision. And we can talk about what that creating that vision looks like. But then two, you gotta put a real date on it and stay focused on it. It can't be, I'll get there one day, or when things are better, we will, because it won't ever. It won't ever.
Atiba, I love that point because even just this weekend, I was working with an executive on effectively charting out, looking at his past, the history of his life to where he is today, and then
Yeah.
mapping out the future, adding a date to the vision, and just being so crystal clear. We hear people talking about SMART goals, but what you're talking about, there's something about it that sounds a little bit more fluid. There's a hard date of we're leaving the country, 7 years in advance. Tell me about that process of those 7 years. Did it feel like,
Yeah.
man, time can't move fast enough? Like, obviously, you have a date with like your daughter literally being old enough to then let you leave. What was that kind of in between time? What did that look like, feel like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a great question because sometimes it can get really nebulous in there when you have a date, especially if it's that far out of 7 years. And it's just like, what the heck am I working towards? Where is it? Where's all this going? But that's where the vision starts to come in. Okay. Because for us, 7 years ago, that vision was we want to live a digital nomadic life. We want to go see the world. That was the vision that we were crystallizing 7 years ago. And so then the question then became, what are all the things in our life right now that don't align with that goal? Okay. Obviously, having multiple brick and mortar locations and owning the largest local gift delivery service in the DC area, yeah, that didn't align, right? But there's even more stuff. There's even more stuff. And you and I, my friend, we've talked about this. There were relational things between my wife and I that we had to figure out and say, what is our relationship going to look like when that happens? And we had to chart that course. We had to look at the children and say, okay, where are they going to be? And that was a big, a big thing for us was what is it going to be for the kids? Now, we got a little bit lucky, I'm not gonna lie. And this was what happens when you start to plan things out, right? And we call it luck, but luck is when opportunity meets preparedness, right? That's luck. Our luck came in that my mother decided she was going to buy the family estate and have a room for all of her children and grandchildren in the family estate. Because my wife, when we were talking about relational, she was very concerned, like, okay, do we need to keep a US home base so that the kids always have the place to go? Right? And that was part of the plan initially was, okay, we're going to buy something here that they always had. But when she did that, it was like, great. And so this
Atiba,
is, yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
So that's the kind of thing. So when it's that far out, it it can feel nebulous when you're looking at that date, but
Mm,
understanding the vision and then understanding all of the misalignments and then plotting, working through those misalignments year by year, month by month, quarter by quarter, that's what
mm,
gets you to the end.
mm. It's so good. So 7 years ago, effectively, you all did an audit of your life and you analyzed everything from the professional to the relational to the financial, like literally taking everything in stock. And then against this vision, working backwards of where am I out of alignment and how do I slowly
Mhm.
bring everything into alignment. This is why I love the 7 year mark. That's a long time to prepare. And so, with this whole question, and I love how you defined luck, which is opportunity meets preparedness. You guys took
Yeah.
so much time to get prepared, and I think that to your point of, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. That's very daunting to hear. It could, man, I got to prepare that. Like, it took them 7 years, man. But let's also talk about the fact that you also were living a life, not that you hated, like you had your family close by, you had your daughter living at home. There was elements of it that were life giving. Yet it also, given that there was this crystallized vision, it also prompted, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, so you tell me if you correct me here. It also prompted you to maybe fix and bring into alignment now your future ideal today, parts of it. Sure, you're not living out of the
Yes,
country, but it forced the reconciling and the fixing of these relational elements that are necessary for the future ideal, but they also bring peace today. So, can we talk a
yes,
little bit about that?
yes, yes. And understand that for me and for everybody it will be different, but for me that existed on two planes. So one is the relationship with my spouse, the other one was the relationship with my children. Okay. um, let's deal with the children first, because for me that one was a little bit easier, right? And it's easier from the stance of what I've always taught my children was this. From birth I've taught them this: I am not your ceiling, I am your floor. If you see me, yeah, you see the hats, and we all think of our parents as superheroes. I need you to understand, anything that you see in me that's a superhero to you, you have in you, and that's the baseline of who you need to be, and you need to go up from me. And so one of the things too that in this was recognizing, oh crap, we put our kids on a really great path, and they're going to need new models soon. They've seen us build businesses. They've seen it. They're going to need new models, and so it's one of the things now. Like we're hearing the kids echo back. It's like, you've raised the bar for us again. You're causing us to step up even more, right? And so that was part of it for me, as a dad and as a leader of the house, was recognizing. I mean, look, my daughter she turns 26 in 2 weeks, and she is a homeowner with a rental real estate. So she has income from rental real estate, right? She's running her own business. Like seriously, I wasn't there at 26.
Right,
Okay,
right,
right. So she surpassed me in just that measure,
right.
right? And I can go through all the kids that way. And I was like, okay, so I got to step up my game. I got to be better. So that was on that side, right? Then on the spousal relationship side, look, life happens to all of us, and it's easy for us to get inundated and in life and know that I'm doing life with somebody else, but there's all this stuff going on, and y'all lose sight of each other. And let me just be blunt, we lost sight of each other. Okay. The reality is 7 years ago, we were completely doing that and going different directions, even though we were working in the same house, but our ideologies were different. Here was a fun one in the beginning of this. This was super, super, super interesting, and painful. When I say interesting, I mean painful. Okay. That's my fun way of saying painful. So we're running this gift delivery service that is the largest gift delivery service in the Washington, D.C. area. It's wonderful, it's great, and everything else. And when we start these conversations about where we're going and what we're going to do with this business, and why we started, and all of this stuff, here's the deal. My wife and daughter, some 12 years earlier, had come up with the concept for a bakery and started. Then they got me involved, and it grew. Okay. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And we turned it into this big thing that it was. Fantastic and wonderful. Now, from my perspective, y'all had an idea. You asked me to partner and help. We all came together and we built this thing. Right? Now, did I want to own a bakery? No, I really didn't. But this is where y'all went. And so we did. Right? And it turned into all of this. In this conversation 7 years ago, here's one of the things I learned, and I remember, and this will mean something to you. We were driving through Georgetown, right, in the back streets of Georgetown, and my wife and I are having this conversation, and this would have been, yeah, so 7 years ago, and so we were having this conversation, and the conversation is about why are we in this company, and how did we get to where we are, and what does it mean to you if it goes away? Because that was one of the things. It's like, as much as we're talking about where we're going, it means death to a lot of stuff right now. And so if there's stuff dying right now, you got to consider, what does that death actually mean here, right? And my wife said something that was interesting. Remember, interesting means painful. Oh, I only do this business for you. I'm only in this company. This company was all built because of you. And because, I figured being in business with you would bring us closer together. And I'm sitting there thinking,
Wow.
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this was never anything I wanted. It was 12 years, y'all. And so when I say going this way, we're doing the same action, but we're going into.
And isn't that how parenting can be too? It's not just being in business together, it can be parenting, any other role in life. You can be sitting in the same car, passenger driver seat, and internally it's worlds apart.
Yeah. And so that's just one. And that caused us to start unpacking many of those types of things. Add on top of that, y'all, and let's just be real, because we're here to be real, right? We're not here to just sugarcoat things. Let's be real. When you're in your 40s and your body starts to change, both men and women, I'm not just talking about women, men and women, right? Your body starts to change, hormones start to change, you start feeling, and what you were yesterday, you're not anymore today. The things you loved, yeah, we had all that mixed up in there. And so there was a lot of time of having to figure out, so who the heck are we again?
Atiba, you said this one time. You said that her love language had changed, which I thought was
Hmm.
it was so helpful to hear that. You said that on the Knowing podcast. And I'd love to lean into that a little bit too, because as we're talking about these grand visions for our lives and creating the life we
Yeah,
love, so many times we actually leave our partner and our children behind in the wake of our pursuit and of the chase. So, can we talk a little bit about how you and your wife really came into alignment surrounding making sure that your relationship is one that you love? In addition
yeah,
to creating life as a whole that you.
yeah, yeah. So that, I'm going to use my word again. That was very interesting. Um, let's talk about the love language changing, right? Because I think this is a thing that a lot of couples don't realize. I know I didn't at all, and I've talked to several who haven't, right? So I can count 3 times my wife's love language has changed in the 19 years we're together. And get this, 2 of those in the last 5 years.
Oh, how exciting.
Okay.
I love that.
And so, and now it may have been more. That's just the ones I know, right? So I had a picture of what love was and what it meant to give love. Clear picture. So you get married and you do that. And somewhere in there, you realize what you're doing isn't being received. And then you try to figure out, okay, what is it that you actually want? And you try to do that. And so in my wife's case, it was she wanted acts of service. Okay. Right. She wanted acts of service. Okay, fine. Wonderful. So once I learned that, it was all right. So what are the acts of service? Great. So let's start making sure. And come on, dudes, like, things like taking out the trash and those types of things. And we're not always the best at, some of us, right? And I'm the worst. I don't see those details, but those were acts of service that meant something for her. And so I had to learn all those things. Acts of service with the kids, acts of service in even in the business, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. And I remember standing in our bedroom, and the bed is here, and I'm standing against the closet door, and she's sitting up in the bed, and we're having a conversation. And it was a very interesting conversation. And my point in the conversation was, I don't understand, because I've done this, 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 I've done this. And these are all things that are acts of service that you've wanted. And you're sitting here telling me you don't feel loved. I don't get it, because that's what you've always wanted. And because you don't feel love, you're not willing to give me love. And so I don't get it. And she said, I don't want those things. Who told you I wanted those things? You did. Acts of service. And that was the most. She said, no, 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 no. I needed those things when the kids were 8 years old.
Yes. Wow.
Right.
Atiba, I have chills. This is so important.
And now we got kids in college. So I don't need those things anymore. And so when we look at creating that life that we want, when we look at projecting that out, it's also taking in account the here and now of what's changed for me that I need. And when I look at that life that I want, what is it that I want to need? Because listen, it wasn't pretty either. Because even though we've been planning this for 7 years, there was a long period of time where she also felt, because you know how much I travel, right? Like I travel 2 weeks a month. I'm always on the road, right? And to me, that's why the digital nomad life was great, because like I'm always on the road anyway. Why come
She
back?
just comes with you. Yeah.
Just stay out and have fun, right? And she started feeling like what I was actually going to be doing was just shipping over to a different country and leaving her and disappearing. Right? And this was just my excuse to ship her out. So even though we both said, because she's always wanted to travel. When we were younger, she said, my ideal life is to just travel and have someone cook for me everywhere I go and not have to do, and just get, I want to just do that. And so it's like, so we're creating what you said since you were a kid is your ideal life that you're super excited about. But again, we're in the same car. We're in the same car. And even though we have this plan for 7 years, we've had points in that 7 year period where you think you're going this way. I think we're
Right.
going this way. Yeah, we gotta. And so
So
it's
then what
important to have. Go ahead.
is it those conversations? And I mean, is it just as simple as communication?
You know, we say just as simple as, but it is. And it's a matter of understanding that misunderstandings happen because of misaligned priorities and or assumptions. And assumptions happen because there are things that we want or we believe are either universal or that we're a little too scared to really ask about. And so instead we assume it's going to be true because that kind of just makes sense.
Mm. I love the fear associated with assumption. That actually
Oh,
adds a depth of layer behind why am I making that assumption? Am I too afraid to ask? And
yeah.
to this whole point of is it really as simple as communication? To your point, communication is not simple. And it forces us to look in the mirror at that moment of have I effectively shared this? And do I even know for myself? There's a
Yes.
number of times when we can come into conflict and it's like, I don't even actually know why I'm upset. And so assuming a radical responsibility to go inward, look in the mirror and use your partner. And isn't that the hard challenge to say, man, I know that you did something that is really bothering me. And I need to go inward first before it's like that biblical text of take the log out of your own eye. Then you can see clearly to see the speck. So I've got this giant log preventing me from seeing clearly because I haven't done the work to go inward to know and then be able to effectively even have a good communication cadence. So
Yeah.
I saw you kind of like lurch at that. So what's your experience in that regard?
So let's talk about that log and let's talk about specs and let's talk about all of that from the perspective of recognizing that, and this is gonna be hard, y'all. I hope y'all are ready for this. Okay. And if y'all don't like it, don't blame us. But you lied to yourself. You see, part of the challenge with communication and assumption is you are lying to yourself. And I've credited you publicly for this, Christene. One of the things that I got from you, and is this moment in time of looking at yourself in the mirror and honestly seeing yourself, right? The reality is, so many of us have so much negative tape playing in our head constantly about ourselves. And we're saying so many negative things about ourselves constantly that we don't even know the truth of what is true. Because so many of the negative things that we're saying to ourselves are lies. And so when we communicate, and we're communicating from a buffer of trying to even hide what we're saying to ourselves, which wasn't true
Yes.
in the first
Wow.
place, to someone else who's on the other side doing the exact same thing. Now we've got of what? And
Mm.
so that's a lot of the key there, is in order to get to that simplicity of communication, in order to get past the assumption, in order to get the log out of your eye, part of getting the log out of your eye is just going and telling yourself the truth and actually being truthful with yourself, which is hard because we've
It's
been
so
lying to
hard.
ourselves for so long about so many things
Mm.
that there are lies that we know are true. How about that?
Lean into that if you would.
So I want you who is listening to us right now to take a moment and think about something that you said to yourself. Think about things that when you say to yourself. And I don't need you to go be grandiose. Let's talk about you go outside and you trip, or you drop something that you were carrying, and you say, "You're a dummy. Why'd you do that?"
Yeah.
Think about those moments. Are you actually a dummy? And maybe use other terms that are even less flattering. But we tell ourselves these lies and we end up believing these lies. We end up holding these lies. So often we
Mm.
tell ourselves lies about who we were in the past. Now, one of the conversations that we've had, just to bring this forward into where we are too, with my wife and I, is the fact that we are leaving the country and entering into a new society that we don't know a ton about. We're not from there. It's a whole new culture. It's a whole new people, and we're entering into a whole new world. And when we get to enter into that whole new world, after she was born and raised in DC, I've been in DC for 40 years, or was in DC for 40 years. There's so much identity stuff about who I am that was tied to DC that I've believed about myself. Okay, I'll give you one. I have a hard time walking into rooms that I don't know anyone. That's an identity thing that I believe about myself. Guess what? I'm about to walk into a country. Okay. And so, therefore, I now have to figure out how to unbelieve that about myself because it's not true. But in here it is. But it isn't real. It's a lie that I told myself from when I was a kid.
And that's I think that this is so important. It used to be true, and it's no longer true because we've evolved and we've grown, and our narratives, our self narratives, and
Has
our
not.
identity need to evolve with us as well. This is
Yes.
huge. I love this point. And
Yes.
so that's
And
where going in and looking in the mirror is so critical on a regular basis.
and being truthful. Okay. Now, in that being truthful, there are times where that truthful is, I'm really struggling with this. Like, I'm really scared about this. I don't really understand this. It doesn't just mean that everything is rosy, because crap, everything isn't. It just isn't, right? There are things that are going to be tumultuous and things that you're going to look at and you like, I don't know, right? And the reality, and watch this, y'all. So this is what happened to me, and I'm just going to share this with you. So we're going into a new society. I am not someone who likes small talk in general. Like, I don't want to talk about the weather and stuff. I like to talk about things that matter and will actually change the world, right? That's small talk for me, right? And so I'm not like, okay, where am I going to find good people? And how am I going to do networking in this new environment? What's that going to look like? And I'm thinking through this and I'm being honest with myself that I don't know where to start with this. And it's really a point of anxiety for me because it's been a challenge at times in the past. And I'm like, but it can't be a challenge moving forward into this new. And so I'm having this conversation with Atiba, and we're talking about this. Okay. Atiba and I are talking about this. And I'm being honest with Atiba about this challenge here and the fact that doing this move and not being able to create that environment for myself with people that I can have real conversations with is going to make it really hard for me to exist there. So, and not run and try to go somewhere else and find it. So, how do I do that? This is the conversation. Remember what luck is. Opportunity meets preparedness. Okay. I then get a random WhatsApp message from someone who I had just met a couple weeks before who said, hey, I got a friend in the Philippines. Okay, great. Yeah, connect us. And she connects us. And I get to talking with this guy, and he's like, okay, so when you get here, we're going to go out and we're going to hang out. But what I want you to know, there are tons of business networking groups, and we meet on this day, we meet on this day. And I got a whole monthly schedule of because he's going to be living like literally 6 blocks away from me, in this 10-block radius of where I'm going to be living, of 4 to 5 events that happen every single month for business people to get together and have conversations. But it takes being honest with yourself and knowing that that's going to be an issue and thinking through what is this going to look like. And you're going to say, oh, that might have happened anyway. Maybe it would, but somebody else will call that luck. And I call it, I was prepared, because if I hadn't gone through the emotional exercise, maybe she wouldn't have realized, maybe she wouldn't have made that connection, maybe it wouldn't have all come out.
And also, it's preparing you to receive. With that coming square
Yes.
with the person in the mirror, you're actually reconciling with even you're receiving with gratitude now, where maybe you wouldn't have to the same degree, because you're like, wow, this is really a need. Let me be so grateful. And then she's probably going to give you another favor later on because of your ability to receive. And isn't that a
Yes.
question? Is our inability to receive actually a reflection that we have yet to go look in the mirror in that particular area of our life? What is preventing us from being able to receive from others?
And now let's crosswalk that back into the spouse.
Mm,
Because when we
mm.
can't be honest there, and we're blocking our own ability to receive, and then we can't be honest in this intimate relationship, then we're blocking their ability to give, us to receive, and then we're creating even more friction in here, right? And so it's both.
Yeah.
It's on both sides of this, right?
Mm.
But what it does is when you can be that honest, it then allows you with your spouse to have those conversations where you can say, hey, this is truly where I am. This is truly what's going on, right? So let's bring that down and bring it home in something very simple. Like I told you, in your 40s, things going on. One of the things my wife is doing is hormone replacement therapy, and she gets these testosterone pellets, right? She gets these testosterone pellets. We used to live in DC. She used to fly to Charlotte to get the testosterone pellets from this particular doctor that we love. Well, now we're moving out of country. How's that going to work? And so it's blah, 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 blah. And she was carrying and harboring a lot of anxiety about that because modulating her hormones has changed so much in her life. And so she was terrified that not having it and going backwards was going to cause problems, right? And now today she's carrying that weight, and it's affecting our relationship. And I'm not understanding some of the pushback that I'm getting, and I'm like, where's this? What was? Because that's what's going on,
There's an
right?
internal narrative that you're not privy to, right?
And in the moment that she said, "This is where I am," and this is what I've been having the conversation with myself, and this is my true fear and the lies that I'm telling myself about what's about to happen. And so, okay, well, um, while I was there, I happened to scope out several places that can do this. And just, oh, really? You already knew that? You already have that? I'm like, yeah. So let's go look at some of them, right? And you're working with this doctor whose name we won't name right now. We're working with this doctor right now, and I work with other doctors, and yes, you're on the pellets, but there are other options, right? And so maybe it's the cream, which isn't as effective, or maybe you got to go to the sub-Q shots, right? Yeah, I don't really want to do this. Yeah, and so we start weighing those. Is it going to be as effective? Yeah, we start weighing those, right? Again, that level of honesty there gave her a sense of peace that, okay, maybe that we can work this out, but there was still a twinge. But now, to your point about the openness and what it attracts, then we have dinner. You know Travis Houston?
Yes.
Yes. So we have dinner with Travis and Joy a couple nights ago, and somehow the two of them got in the conversation, and Joy completely just opened her mind to why the sub-Q or the pills will be just as fine as the pellets based on and now she's comfortable. But if she wasn't willing a couple weeks ago to look at herself in the mirror and then come to me and have this honest conversation, those things don't come up, and you end up harboring that, and then that bubbles up and spills over into other areas where now you're dealing with fruit issues and not root issues. And
I
so
love
many
that
relationships are
phrase.
dealing with fruit issues, and you're trying to solve
Mm.
fruit issues, and you keep wondering why if I solve this fruit issue, why did a different fruit show up? Why does it get grafted and come back looking like something different? It's because you didn't actually deal with the root issue, which was based on a lie very often that we're not addressing.
Mm. Diva, I cannot thank you enough for going down this direction and talking about the relational components that are so critical in creating this life that we love. There's so many more areas that we need to talk about. I need to go hop on a flight. Can we schedule a part two for this conversation? Because this is so important.
That's not a question. You know that. Whenever you need me.
I love it. Well, let's continue this conversation. Part two, crafting the life you love, folks, in the next week or two. Atiba, thank you so much. So appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's good to see you as always.
Good